Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Lemaire. I'm a programmer at the American Cinematheque, and I'm thrilled to present this Q&A for the amazing film, The Man Who Sold His Skin, which is nominated this year for the Academy Award for Best International Feature Film. Today, we have the filmmaker Kaouther Ben Hania joining us to discuss her work. And our moderator is Todd McCarthy, who is a film critic and writer for Deadline Hollywood. So I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. And as always, thank you to our American Cinematheque members just for your continued support. And I'd now like to turn it over to Todd and welcome the filmmaker. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Todd McCarthy, and we are delighted to have as our guest, maker of one of the 5 finalists for Best Foreign Film of the Year, Kaouther Ben Hania. She's in Paris, and I'm in Los Angeles, but we're all connected here. And Kaouther just made her second feature, which is The Man Who Sold His Skin, which is a fantastic, very original film, which we will talk about today. She had her first film in the Cannes Film Festival a few years ago called Beauty and the Dogs. And she's made a couple of other things in Tunisia, and she's from Tunisia. Perhaps I'm curious just to know, how did you sort of make your start growing up in Tunisia, where there hasn't been too much of a film industry, although I understand that the film industry in your country goes way, way back to the silent days, and that there's quite a bit of interesting history in your country, but it's been kind of erratic, sometimes up, sometimes down. But how did you get interested in the cinema, and what led you to want to direct films coming from Tunisia?
I mean, I grew up in a small city, not even in the capital, in the center of Tunisia, a city called Sidi Bouzid, which is very small and poor. It became famous because all the Arab revolution started there. You have this emulation, the guy who emulate himself, it was in this city. But when I was teenager, there was no cinema at all. I grew up with the VHS. There was a club renting VHS films, and mainly film from Bollywood, Indian movie. So I grew up with those fairy tales where people stop living and start dancing and singing in a fiesta, and it was a wonderful world, but I never thought that I'd be a filmmaker, because I have no link with cinema in my family, around me. I was thinking about being a writer, novel writer, because I love reading, and I grow up reading all the time, since in this kind of city you have nothing to do. There is not even a cafe for women, it's only for men. So I was reading all the time, and it was my way to escape, this kind of situation by imagination. So I wanted to write early, but I discovered cinema when I was in university in the capital. I was member of amateur cinema club. We were doing amateur movies, Sunday and in the weekend. So I found it really fascinating. And since I didn't have a wonderful style in writing, I thought, screenplay can be something for me. It's always in the present. It's a document for work, so then I started thinking. I was doing business study. I wanted, it was a very good school, and my parents were proud of me to do this school. But being in this amateur cinema club changed my mind in a way. It was the calling, or I don't know how I can call it, and I wanted to reshape everything around me to do cinema.
It's interesting, though. I was just doing some reading that the very first film made in Africa was a Tunisian film in 1919.
Yes, because the brother Lumière, they had their correspondent there in Tunisia, and they filmed, in their first silent small movie. They filmed the King of Tunisia, and this correspondent, he made a movie. His name is Shamem El-Shikli. He was the first Tunisian filmmaker. He made the silent movie. A very beautiful movie, and then you have a lot of, as you said, up and down, especially after the independence of Tunisia and under the dictatorship. You had the place of cinema wasn't clear. It was used to sell Tunisia as a touristic destiny sometimes, but there was interesting films done. There was voices and author voices in Tunisia.
Yeah, and I also found out that even in the 1970s, there were over 100 cinemas in Tunisia, and now there's maybe just 14 or 15, something like that. It's very sad to think that the interest in cinema has declined so much.
Yes, exactly. There was a lot of cinema. Cinema was, the activity, to go out and, but then, you have television, and as I said, under dictatorship, cinema is a little bit dangerous. We have to keep people at home to watch propaganda and TV.
Yeah. So in your own career, I mean, so how did you really get started in deciding that cinema was for you? And did you go to study cinema in France or something like that? Tell us a little bit about how you really got your hands dirty in preparing to enter the world of cinema.
So I was in this business school, and I had to finish it. So because when I start something, I want to finish it. So to give the diploma to my parent. And then there was a private school in Tunisia. I didn't have money to study in it, so I knocked in the door of the director. She was a woman, and I told her, listen, I want to do cinema, but I can't pay you. She told me, I hope one day you will be a great filmmaker, so you can make publicity to my school. So I accept you at this one condition. Being studying. So I started in this school, and then I came to France to study script writing in France. So yeah, it started like this.
And so what was the first film you made yourself?
I made school movies, and then the first, let's say, movie with budget, it was in 2006. And I'm not very proud of this movie, because it was a short movie filmed in 35 millimeters. And it was very complicated because we don't have a lab in Tunisia. So we had to send, the footage to Belgium to develop it. So it was really complicated, and I had no, experience, and it was a traumatizing experience. I told myself, it's not for me making movie. I have to, only write screenplays. Yeah.
And then, so finally, when did you make a film that you made another short film, I know early, I think called Slasher of Tunis? What is that?
It's not a short movie. It's my first feature movie, and it's a mockumentary.
Like what? What kind of?
It's a story about an urban legend in Tunisia that was a terrifying girl of a guy in motorbike with a knife in his hand, slashing the butts of girls, so going in the street and terrifying women and girls. So there was this urban legend in the city, and I thought it can be very interesting to make it in a mockumentary, because an urban legend is something between the reality and the fiction. You have facts, but you have a lot of rumor around it. So it was a mockumentary, and actually it was presented in Acid. It's a parallel section of Cannes in 2014.
Mm-hmm. And then did that lead directly to making your next film, or the Beauty and the Dogs film?
I did some documentaries before this one and while doing this one, you know, because I was afraid. I told you about my first fiction experience in this short of fiction. I thought it's very difficult to, you know, to create something authentic out of lies, you know. So I did documentaries and I learned a lot from documentaries. That's why I did this mockumentary, you know. It was for me a path to fiction. Because in mockumentary it's fictional, but it's in a documentary style. So then I told myself, now I'm ready to do total fiction, and it was Beauty and the Dogs.
Well, tell us a little bit about that film. What is that? What is that about?
So Beauty and the Dogs, it's about a young Tunisian student. She's raped by a policeman. And all the movie, she's trying to file, you know, to sue them, you know, in the police station. Mm-hmm. So how to sue the police to the police in a corrupted system. So it's one night of this tragic event, and it's filmed in 9 long takes, like 9 chapters, you know. She's going from hospital to police station, trying, you know, to file this complaint against policemen.
Well, what led you to do each part of the film all in one take? How did you decide to do that?
Because, you know, the form of movies, I don't have, you know, my own style that I put in every movies. Mm-hmm. I always question the nature of the movie. So the movie, the story proposed to me its form, you know, like I told you in this mockumentary, it was an urban legend. So mockumentary form is quite, you know, good for this story. And then this was like, you know, a real tragic situation in very claustrophobic places. So I wanted people, you know, to live with the character, this crescendo, you know, chapter from 1 to 9 in every place. And I thought that the long takes give you this possibility to be in the body and in the shoes and in the moment. The real time is very strong in cinema. So you can feel every moment of her struggle.
So at the same time, though, it seems like I haven't seen your very early films, but that it seems to me that all of your films are driven by some kind of social issues. And I'm wondering if that is a very important, was been an important thing for you from the very beginning, that you're kind of driven and led to treat social and political issues in your films. Could you speak about that and the development of that interest for you?
I think that, you know, my films are very different, but I think the link between those movies is my obsession about justice, you know. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about justice, we talk about social relationship and how, and it's also political thing, it's social and political when we talk about justice. So in Beauty and the Dogs, she's looking for justice along, you know, all the movie. And in The Man Who Sold His Skin is something, you know, about an unjust world for somebody living an unjust situation and making choices because he don't have a choice. So it's, and I'm very interested, you know, in relationship between dominant and dominee. And the conflict, you know, between people and institution. So that's why Beauty and the Dog, it's something not about the rape, because I didn't film the rape, but about the second rape, you know, the more you know, cold rape, let's say, of the institutions, you know. And in the Man Who Sold His Skin, it's about the art institution. So it's something always, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, the relationship between the dominant and the dominee.
Yeah, well, certainly The Man Who Sold His Skin is a very original film and a very striking film. And could you just tell us maybe the seeds of the idea for the film and how you developed the idea from whatever you thought originally to make it, because it's a very ambitious film, politically, thematically, and certainly in the way you depict the art world as well. There's many aspects to talk about. But so what was kind of the little seed that started the Man Who Sold His Skin?
The seed was, I was in Louvre Museum in Paris, and I saw in Napoleon apartment a man exhibited with a tattoo in his back, and it was I mean, in Louvre there was a retrospective of Wim Delvoye. He's a Belgian artist, and only the seed was this image, a man exhibiting his back tattooed in a museum.
And what was tattooed on his back?
It was very different from the tattoo in my movie. It was a Madonna, you know, with a skeleton head, with angels. It was between, you know, Mexican style and Baroque style. It was very different. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the image stayed in my head, and it became an obsession, you know. I couldn't, you know, forget it. And then I started, you know, asking myself, who's this guy, why he did it, if I want to tell his story, what if he's a Syrian refugee? So I wasn't at all interested by the real story of this guy. I wanted to take it to the fiction realm and to explore all the potential of this image and what it gave me, you know, it gave me a lot of tools, you know, and a lot of questions, mainly to construct, you know, a world and the story and the character.
Now, but it was based when you did, it was based on a real case. Are you referring to the inspiration of the tattoo, or there was another case that it was kind of based on?
No, I'm referring to Wim Delvoye's piece of art, which is this guy tattooed, and it was a small scandal, you know, in the art world, you know, because he's a provocative artist, and so it was inspired from this this image of a guy exhibiting his back in a museum, which is real. I saw it, and then I wanted to make it mine, you know.
Mm-hmm. And has he continued, the real guy, has he continued to be exhibited?
Yeah, till today. It's amazing. I mean, he was in Australia, I think, and exhibited in museum during the lockdown. And there was a streaming in YouTube showing him just sitting, you know, in this museum and being exhibited. Yes, till today he's exhibited in museum.
So how many years has this been going on for him?
The tattoo was done in 2006, so many years.
So for more than 15 years, he's been appearing in museums all over the world?
Yes, exactly.
So did you speak with him? Did you meet him? Did you talk about what his life is like?
I spoke with the artist who made this work, and the artist is doing a small cameo in the movie. He's the insurance broker in this scene in the reception of the collector talking about the piece he just bought. And you have the insurance guy talking about the price of the insurance, which depend on the death of Sam, the main character, so the piece of art. So he did this small cameo of an insurance broker in the movie.
So how did you develop the script? I mean, how did you work out what the scenario would be for this character, somewhat based on a real guy, but you know, there's so much you invented. Also, for instance, maybe just to start, in the first scenes in the film, it's about a couple who are having great difficulties. So maybe if you could just set up the premise for people and tell us why you decided to make the male character I mean, not very sympathetic initially because he's very obnoxious in a way, but also, and very rash. And I'm just wondering how you develop the central, at that point, the man and the woman, the two central characters.
Yes, I mean the writing of this story, it was a process like all writing. I think, as I told you, I was obsessed by this image, and then other element came to me, you know. It was like the sponge image, you know, bringing around it many things, like, you know, the refugee story, because at the time I was a lot with Syrian refugee arriving in Europe, and they had, you know, those incredible tragic stories. So at some point, the story, in a way, you know, in an unconscious way, shaped itself by itself in my head. And I arrived, you know, at some point where I wanted to put it down. So I remember the first draft, I wrote it like in 5 days. It was like a fever, you know, I had to get rid of it. It was very bad. You know, it was like a mess, but I wrote it, you know, during those 5 days to put it out on papers. And then it was before the shooting of Beauty and the Dogs. Wow. And then when I finished Beauty and the Dogs, I came back to those material, you know, chaotic materials, and I started, you know, to process more like, you know, let's say an architecture to shape the story in a more, you know, in a more professional way, believable way, authentic way. So asking myself all the question of how the story start, all the event, you know, the turning point of the story. And this moment of rewriting was, you know, long. And I mean, I was rewriting even before, you know, the shooting, you know, the day before the shooting, to refine things and to make them more believable. So yeah, the movie, I wanted to shape it like a circle, you know, because it's starting with this white place that we can think of like it's a gallery or a museum, and it ends in this same place. It started with this love story with the character trying to put his arm around the girl he's in love with. And it's very complicated because nobody, you know, have an authority over his body in this kind of context, in this train scene. And since he's living under a dictatorship, it started, you know, in the story in 2011 with the Syrian uprising. So he's saying stuff, normal stuff, you know, but he found himself in jail. And so we see from the beginning that he don't possess his body, you know, and it's like an installation for the biggest story where he will sell his back and will have no control over his body. And it finished, I'll not spoil the finish, but yeah, with the same gesture, you know, of him possessing his body again.
Yeah. Well, when you spoke with the real guy who had the tattoo on his back and became an art installation, did you speak with him about what his life was like and what it was like sitting there for 8 hours per day, just stationary? You know, what did you learn by speaking with the actual man who went through with this?
I think that Tim's story is very different. I mean, the real guy from my story, you know, we are talking about fiction, you know, it was his own choice, and his, you know, it's like a job for him, and why not? You know, you have many, how to say, boring job. So it's a very different case.
I just wonder if you go into his Zen space where you just completely kind of or somehow rest, because otherwise you could be too agitated or too bored or something like that. So it seems like you would have to go into a different zone to do that every day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why in my story, I worked with Yahya Mahani, who's the actor in the part of Sam Ali. He's not this kind of quiet guy, He's so agitated. We feel that he have a lot of energy. So he's not the good person, to be seated in a museum for a long time.
Well, for people who haven't seen the film yet, or just to give them a little bit of insight, could you tell us about the other principal characters? Because you got there's the art gallery, or the artist that he meets when he goes to Europe, and then there's the woman also who comes in, and maybe just set it up a little bit for the viewers so that they can have a insight into what the basic structure. And then I'd like to talk about how you develop those characters.
So the movie is about a Syrian refugee in Lebanon, and to survive, he's eating, he's entering in an illegal way to art gallery to eat, to survive mainly. And in one of those, yes, to eat food. And in one of those gallery, he meets a very famous contemporary artist, and he proposed him a deal, like a Faustian bargain, because our character want to go to Europe to join the girl he loves, and he can't because he don't have papers. So the artist tell him, mainly, give me your back, I'll make a tattoo, I'll make out of you a work of art, and then you'll see all the doors of Europe will open for you, you will have your visa, and he became free in a way to travel, but he found out that he lost something else, he lost his dignity, his real freedom in this process, becoming an object, a work of art in this very prestigious art world. And this contract is supervised by the art gallery, which is played by Monica Bellucci, and she's a very venomous woman, and a very cold woman trying to do things right for the artist.
And can you tell us about the actors, Monica Bellucci and the fellow who played the artist? Did you know the art world very well? How did you write those characters and cast those characters?
The artist is played by Condebo. He's a Belgian artist. He's a star in Belgium, and he's a great actor. And for the anecdote, when I casted Condebo, he told me, I want to meet with the real artist, Wim Delvoye. So I put them in contact, and they met, and they spent like 9 hours together talking. And then Wim Delvoye wanted to be in the movie, so I proposed to him this insurance part, like cameo. But it was a real pleasure to work with those very different actor coming from very different background. I mean, Sam Ali, Yahya Mahani, he's a Syrian actor. He's not a confirmed actor. It's his first feature film, and he's great in the movie. He got in Venice Film Festival the award of Best Actor for this movie. And Dea Lian, the actress playing the girl he's in love with, she's an actress from theater. It's her first appearance in a movie, but she's great. And in the other side, in the other world, the art world, you have Monica Bellucci. She's an icon, and Condebo, he's well known in Europe. So I mean, I enjoyed a lot, mixing those background, because all of them, they are great actors, but every one of them brought his his background on the story in a subliminal way.
Mm-hmm. But Monica Bellucci, how did you approach her? How did you, I don't think you knew her, did you? How did you get her to be in the film?
No, I didn't knew her, but I was talking about my producer about this character, and I told him I think that she is a very beautiful woman she's like an icon. And he told me Monica Bellucci, and told him great idea. He told me I'll send the script to her agent, and then she said yes. It was very easy. I mean, she saw Beauty and the Dogs, and she loved the movie. And she loved the script, and it was really easy, and we got her on board even before finding the main character.
So she was good to work with. You had a nice time working with her in the film?
Yes, it was great. She's a great woman, Monica, and it was amazing because in the beginning she told me who's the main part, and I told her, he's not even an actor, he's a lawyer, because Yahya in real life he's a lawyer. And she told me, are you crazy? It's a very difficult part. How you can give it to a non-actor, you know? And she was, you know, suspicious about, you know, me not being that professional. She was almost afraid. So I arranged the meeting between Monica and Yahya, and she saw immediately what I saw in him, and she was, you know, and he speaks Italian also, so it was a very nice meeting, and they were a very good partner on screen.
I think the same week I saw your film, I saw the episode of the French TV series Call My Agent. I don't remember what it's called in France, but you know the show I mean, the Call My Agent?
Yes, exactly.
She was in one episode where she didn't want to do the same kind of film. She was ready to do other things, and so she was ready to do your film as well.
Yes, Monica works like this. She's not, you know, she wants different things. She wants to work, you know, to do stuff that she's passionate with. And she's also very, she wants to work with women director. She loves working with women directors. So I think it helped me a lot, my gender.
Yeah, wow. Now, are there other people coming up from Tunisia now? Like you, who want to make cinema, but maybe there's not so many opportunities in Tunisia. Do you have friends who are also trying to make films? And if so, where are they going to study, and how are they getting their careers going?
I'm not the only director in Tunisia, because, you know, we have, it's a small country, but in every big festival you have a Tunisian movie in the past, let's say 10 years, because there was something happening in Tunisia, which is now young democracy after the revolution, that we had no more censorship. So we have this freedom of speech where we can talk about whatever we want. So you have, you know, a generation of filmmakers making really interesting movie about, you know, because in this region you have a lot of conflict. I'm talking about all the Arab region, a lot of conflict, and not a lot of cinema because of censorship. So when you have freedom of speech, you are discovering treasure of storytelling, since storytelling is based on conflict. Yeah, there are other very good director that were in Berlin, in Cannes, in Venice in the previous years.
But coming up from Tunisia, are there a few?
Yes, I'm talking about Tunisian director.
Yeah, oh, that's good. How did you really? I'm curious to. I want to compliment you, the cinematography and just the way of shooting in the film, which is both the director and cinematographer, is fantastic in your film. And could you speak a little bit about, you know, how did you learn about camera and shooting, and what kind of collaboration did you have with the cinematographer? Because I think it's clear. I think both of you and the cinematographer will go a long way, because you really know what you're doing. So I was wondering tell us about your training and learning about cinematography and your collaboration with your cinematographer.
I'm obsessed by framing. When I did documentary, I was shooting myself. I did the camera. So I love framing this space and choosing the angles and thinking about the best lenses. And I'm interested, you know, in the how to film a situation. You know, it's like an obsession for me. So when I started already, you know, writing this movie, I knew that it's a movie that I'll have a lot of reference in it, since it's in the art world, and you have a naked body, and the masculine naked body was painted a lot, you know, in the history of art. So I already gathered a lot of references. And when Christopher Hound, the DOP, he's great, you know, he's young. He already did another great movie, Kaouther, was nominated years ago, you know, the Lebanese movie Kaouther by Nadine Labaki. And he's a very creative guy. And we were talking about the image and the frame days and days. And we had to do a lot of prep because the movie was done with not a comfortable budget. So I knew that in the shooting, I can't discuss anything. I had to have a clear vision of what I want. So we did a huge work in preparation about thinking, you know, I almost storyboarded every frame, and we were sharing references all the time, talking about colors and how to, you know, to express in a visual way the journey of Sam Ali in every step. So he was great. I mean, yeah, I think he will have a great career in front of him, because he's very creative and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, well, that's very clear. Yeah. And one technical question that you can't help but wonder about it, with the man sitting there with the tattoo on his back, from a practical point of view, did he have to keep getting that painted on his back, or was he able to keep that for a number of days or weeks? How was that achieved?
We did this every day when we needed the tattoo exhibited. So it was, yeah, a long process with the makeup artist. It took like 4 hours, 3 hours, between 4 and 3 hours, you know, to fix the tattoo on his back, and he can't keep it, you know, because it can't stay, you know, if he have clothes. And so at the end of the day, he's having you know, another session, you know, to take it. So it was very how to say long process for the actor.
Yeah. So I checked, and I realized that in the history of the Oscars, only 9 films from the African continent have ever been nominated, and that's quite a distinction for you. I'm curious, what films did you see growing up, or what did you see locally that really excited you and made you think you could have a career or motivated you to have a career in the cinema?
As I told you, I grew up with the Indian movie, but yeah. One day, one day, I think I was 12 or something like this, I realized that I watched all the movies on this renting club. So I asked him if he have other Indian movies. He told me no, but I can give you a horror movie, but you are still young, I'm not sure, so you know, you are curious about dangerous experience. I told him, please give me the horror movie. So he gave me Carrie of Brian De Palma, and which is a novel by Stephen King, adapted by Brian De Palma. And I watched this movie, I remember, and the beginning of the movie, it was very different from Bollywood cinema. you have this girl having her periods and being bullied in the school. And I was shocked, because it was almost talking about me, And I told myself, really, in film, you can talk about, people can see themselves in movies, So I was this young girl in a small town in Tunisia, in this conservative, very Muslim family. And I was watching Carrie in this small city in America with this conservative, very religious mother having her periods. And so I was really fascinated, There was a kind of revelation for me about cinema, because it was discovery, to see after all the Bollywood movie, which I thought that it's not real in life. People don't start singing and dancing. But now I have a movie where I have a girl like me, and it was a really disturbing moment. And it was like a discovery. So then I started watching more realistic, let's say, movie, looking for myself in those stories.
I see. So what kind of films would you like to make, continue to make? Because all your films, I mean, the ones that I know about, they all have there's certainly women's issues, women's rights are very important to you, and getting into the art world was an interesting thing. You retained, what you've been doing, but it kind of expanded your horizons, I would say. It was a blend of different kinds of cinema. What sort of career would you like to have? What kind of films would you like to make if you can make films for the next 3 or 4 decades?
I already have projects because we were in lockdown, and I love lockdown because it gives me the possibility to write a lot. So I wrote a lot in the previous year,
Mm-hmm.
and I have project, I think, for the next decade maybe, and they are very different. I want to do sci-fi movie, for example, because I think that sci-fi movie can give you the possibility to think about what is a human being, what kind of system we can invent, political system. I want also to do historical period movies, because I think, especially in the region, because I think there is a beautiful aesthetic that people don't know about, since when we think about period, we think always about European castle and costume, European costume. And I think there is very beautiful architecture in the Muslim countries, and a lot of wonderful stories, and a lot of interesting costume, and I mean aesthetic. When I'm thinking about those elements, very different aesthetic that I can explore and use it in a very different and original way of storytelling. So yes, I have a very different project.
I mean, how would you react if you got offers to make a Hollywood film or big, international films? Would you feel like you want to stay with your personal projects, or are you interested in making bigger, international or Hollywood type films?
I think it's about encounters. You may encounter a story that you fall in love with. I mean, I work with passion. My main mobile, or what makes me do movies, because it's very difficult task to do movie, is being passionate about the story and the universe and the world building. So yes, I'm interested in everything that can that I can be passionate about.
But it surprised me when you said you would make a science fiction film. What can you tell us anything about what kind of science fiction you have in mind?
you know, I'm very superstitious when I talk about projects that don't exist, you know, only in paper. But mainly, as I told you, I'm interested by thinking about humanity in the next century, you know, and what political form can govern people in an equal way, and how the people can be, you know, since we are animal, can react to this kind of governance, which can be, you know, superior to them. So it's something about reorganizing, thinking about a more just world, but with its own new flows, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I realized that there are so few cinemas in Tunisia now. There were 100 or so when you were growing up, something like that. And now there's only about 14 or 15 cinemas, which I find very sad. Why do you think it's diminished so much in Tunisia?
Because as I told you, when Tunisia was a dictatorship, and when you have a dictatorship, having places where people gather and have discussion, it's dangerous for the power in place, you know. People have to consume, to eat, you know, to think only about the basic things, not to discuss matter. And cinema is a very it's a tool to think and to discuss, and cinema theater gather people, you know. So I think in the process of the liberalization of economy, cinema was considered as something not very how to say, in a commercial way, not very bringing not a lot of money. So I think between politics and businessmen, there was a tacit agreement to transform those places to restaurant, to malls, you know, to supermarket, and to prevent people from gathering, you know, to discuss ideas, but to buy stuff. I think this is to resume, you know, it's more complicated than this, but I think this is the main reason.
Yeah, great. Well, that's fascinating. You have so many ideas you want to explore, and you're very interested in social issues, and then you mentioned science fiction. So it's clearly, I think you make me feel like you have a lot of movies in you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I have a lot of movies. I have a lot of stories to tell. Yes.
Well, that's great. Well, I really wish you the best of luck, and your films so far are very exciting and very inspiring. So you've been using the COVID year very well and doing writing, I guess, you know, making use of your time. So I hope you can get back to work behind the camera. I hope we can all do that, you know, very soon.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
And how did you feel? How did you learn? And I think you might have told me, but about being nominated like this, did you think there was even a chance that would happen, or was it a complete shock to you that you would get nominated?
No, I thought from the beginning, when you have it was 93 movies, that we had no chance, because we don't have you know, money to campaign. I've learned that we have to campaign, you know, and it was a crazy, strange thing for me. So I think that what happened, that the voter discovered the movie, and then there was a shutter, you know, word of mouth going like waves, you know, through this is what I've learned from Variety, I think, Variety magazine. So it's like the movie defended itself by itself. And since we are in a very strange year, there was no gala and all the, you know, the marketing big things. So there was a kind of equality between movies, and it was a surprise for me, because we were like underdogs, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, so when I learned that the movie is finally nominated, it was just unbelievable. And it's the first nomination for Tunisia, and it's the only movie, the only African and Arab movie. So I'm carrying a lot, you know, of region and countries with this movie. And it was a happy moment of national pride in Tunisia.
That's great. That's great. Well, I thank you very much. It's very, very interesting, and certainly your these works. I mean, every film you seem to grow and grow, and we'll look for and expect for a lot out of you in the years to come. I will really look forward to everything you'll make coming up. But in the meantime, very good luck with the nomination and the awards, and you know, very keen to see your next film.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and for this moment.
Well, it was delightful. So thank you again, and hope we can get back behind the camera very soon.
Hope so.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you.